Greetings, diners, and welcome to another edition of The Cooking Zone here on the Doomstead Diner. And we're back on our bug-out cooking apparatus, the hot plate, and we're going to be cooking up probably the easiest premium meal that you will ever find me cook up on the Cooking Zone. And I'll explain a little bit more about premium meals. Basically, a premium meal does not fit in to the Snap Card budget. It's above the Snap Card budget, and this one goes up above it a little bit, not by as much as you might think. And that's one of the interesting things about it. It's absolutely something nobody will expect to see a homeless person living out of his van to be cooking up for himself as his dinner. And but it's still a nice treat, and reminds you of the good old days when you still had a job and could count on eating good food and taking your girlfriend out to expensive restaurants and all that good stuff that you do when you're making money. And when you're not making money, you're generally eating cheap. And, you can still eat well even if you eat cheap. Okay? And we go through many recipes here on the diner in the Cooking Zone that fit the Snap Card budget and that keep you well nourished and are tasty and are good to eat. But anyway, so what are we cooking today? Well, it's a one-pot meal, and there isn't much to it. Like I said, if you can boil an egg, you can do this, which leaves out Donald Trump supporters, but most everybody else should be able to handle this task, okay? And what we need for it in terms of cooking apparatus is a pot. And inside the pot, let me get on a hot glove here. Burn my hand more times than I care to count now doing these shows. Is a steamer tray. And these little steamer trays fold up, nice and compact, fit in your bug-out machine with your other cooking gear. And at the bottom, there's a layer of water to do what you would expect it to do, which is steam whatever's sitting on the steamer tray. So what's going to sit on the steamer tray, you ask? Well, it's a good fucking question, isn't it? What is going to sit up on the steamer tray is a Maine lobster tail. Yum! Lobster. Okay, lobster fest for the homeless man. And we're going to have very traditional steamed lobster with butter and lemon. Okay? Not a whole lot to that preparation. And all we're waiting for now, and we're not waiting much longer because I think it's just about ready to go. I hear bubbles in there and I see condensation on the top of the pot. Yeah, and steam is coming out the sides. So it is ready for Larry the Lobster. And get the hot glove on again. Oh, look at all that steam. And in goes Larry. Well, just part of Larry. And one thing in Alaska, I cannot get, at least in my neighborhood up here in the Mount Niskassusitna River Valley, live lobsters with the claws. And I like the claws, actually better than the tail meat. But, you know, there are some prices you have to pay for living in a fairly remote location, and this is one of them. I can, however, get, if I go down to Anchorage, go to an expensive restaurant, I can get a full lobster with the claws and everything. And we do also have here, let's remember, Alaskan king crab, which is pretty much as delicious as lobster. But, you know, lobster for a change of pace here. And I used to live on the East Coast. And hang on here, I need to check the time. Okay. I used to live on the East Coast, and lobster was one of my favorite dishes to order, especially when I took trips up to Massachusetts and Maine. And we did lobster bakes out on the ocean by the seashore, which were great. And I had a brother-in-law who used to scuba dive. I was young at the time. I was probably a preteen still. But he would go diving and come up with some mighty big lobsters. I think he came up with a maybe an 8-pounder or 10-pounder once. You know, the lobstermen, the guys who set the traps, they don't like the divers, but you know, we would go to locations, and this was actually usually on Long Island, where they also had good lobsters. We would go out to places where the lobstermen didn't set their traps, and we never got caught, so it wasn't a problem for us. Okay, you note that I checked the time over there, you know, a minute or two ago, and that's because you want to note how long you steam your lobster tail for. A typical lobster tail steaming around 8 minutes. This one to me looks a little bit small, so I'm going to go more in the 7-minute range. And one thing you do not want to do with lobster, whether you're steaming it or boiling it or baking it or grilling it on the barbecue, however you're cooking it, you don't want to overcook it. It has a real sweet spot for its taste and its texture. You cook it too long and it gets tough, you know, and it loses the sweetness. So you want to get the time right. And let me look at where I'm at. I'll give it about 3 more minutes. The color of the lobster or the shell also is an indicator of it getting done. As you can see, under the influence of the heat, it gets that nice bright red color, and which you know associate with lobsters, but is not their color when they're alive. And they're usually kind of, at least in the Northeast, a dark brownish in color. There are, though, variations of lobsters that are blue in color and other ones. And then there are variation in lobster types. You know, Maine lobsters aren't the only lobsters there are. There are spiny lobsters, and there are rock lobsters, and I don't know, 2 or 3 other good edible varieties. None of them, though, besides the Maine lobsters, are the Northeast lobsters, because they go all the way up to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and beyond. No other lobsters have the big ass claws, which I love, particularly the crusher claw, which is nice and fat. And recently there was a story about Costco having these absolutely enormous lobster claws on sale, or in their, at least in their lobster rack. I don't know if they were on sale or what the price was that they were asking for them, but there was this picture, and I'll probably put it up in the blog, of the claw by itself, put it this way, was, I think, measured at 3 pounds. That's 3 pounds of claw meat. Okay, there's shell too, but I mean, that whole lobster had to weigh 30 pounds or something. It had to be a one old lobster, you know, in the 100-year range or something like that. And they're selling it at Costco. Okay. I wish I was shopping Costco that day. All right, it's time for the this lobster tail to come out of there. So off with the lid. And then we're basically done cooking. And I'm going to plate it up and enjoy it. Okay, and in this case, I don't think I'm going to shoot a video of me eating a lobster tail. But I will take a picture of the plate up for you to see it in its done configuration. And you should enjoy one of your own here before the crustaceans shells all dissolve in an ocean of high pH or low pH. I can't remember which way we're going. And all the shells dissolve. So much for your clams and your I need a grabber here. Hang on. Let me say goodbye first. So, go enjoy yourself a lobster, and we'll see you next time here in the cooking zone of the Doomstead Diner. Have a great day, Kollapsniks. Hasta la lobster, baby!